Have you ever found yourself waiting for that phone call that never comes? That moment when you needed someone, anyone, to step in and help, but all you heard was silence? It's a painful realization that strikes most of us at some point. The help we desperately await from friends, family, or the world at large often never materializes. This isn't about cynicism or abandoning faith in human connection. Rather, it's about embracing a powerful truth that can transform your life. The most successful, resilient individuals throughout history share one common trait. They discovered the immense power of self-reliance in a world where external support systems frequently fail. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Think about it. How many opportunities have you missed while waiting for someone else's approval or assistance? How many dreams have you put on hold because you believed you needed permission or validation from others? Has this ever happened to you? That sinking feeling when you realize no one is coming to rescue you from your challenges. The modern world operates on a new paradigm of power. Those who thrive aren't necessarily the most connected, the most privileged, or even the most talented. They're the ones who've mastered the art of self-sufficiency when outside support crumbles. They've learned to trust their own capabilities first, to develop internal resources that can't be taken away by changing circumstances or the unreliability of others. This shift towards self-reliance doesn't mean isolating yourself or becoming cold to relationships. On the contrary, it means bringing your full, empowered self to every connection you form. When you no longer approach others from a place of desperate need, but rather from strength and wholeness, your relationships transform. You become magnetic rather than draining. Stay with me until the end of this journey, because the principles I'm about to share have revolutionized countless lives throughout history. From entrepreneurs who built empires from nothing to ordinary people who overcame extraordinary odds, the pattern is consistent and clear. What you're about to discover might surprise you, particularly how the most seemingly dependent aspects of your life can become the very areas where your self-reliance will flourish most powerfully. The paradox of independence is that it actually enhances your ability to form meaningful connections rather than diminishing them. Let's explore why relying primarily on yourself isn't just a useful skill in today's unpredictable world. It's becoming an essential foundation for those who want to thrive rather than merely survive. The new currency of personal power looks very different from what most of us were taught. Don't just watch, join our community, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the bell so you're always the first to see new videos. Convert loneliness into focus, patience into precision, and build an inner fortress. When most people experience solitude, they immediately reach for distractions. Their phones, social media, anything to fill the void. But what if I told you that this empty space is actually your greatest untapped resource? This transformation begins when you reframe loneliness not as abandonment, but as freedom from external noise. Those quiet evenings, those weekends with no plans, these aren't moments to escape from, but gateways to developing an unshakable mental architecture that few will ever construct. I've discovered this hidden truth through necessity. During periods of intense isolation, I noticed something fascinating. My ability to concentrate deepened dramatically. Tasks that would normally take hours could be completed in half the time. Ideas flowed more clearly. I wasn't just working better, I was thinking differently. This is because extended solitude creates neural pathways that strengthen decisiveness. When you're constantly alone with your thoughts, you become the sole architect of your decisions. No outside validation needed. The approval-seeking mechanisms that drain your energy begin to wither away. What emerges is a profound self-sovereignty, a state where external validation becomes increasingly irrelevant. This journey inward reveals that patience isn't just waiting, it's a precision tool. It's the ability to stay with difficult thoughts long enough to extract their wisdom rather than fleeing to the nearest distraction. Consider how rare this capacity has become in our hyper-connected world. Most people can barely sit with an uncomfortable feeling for 30 seconds before reaching for their phone. But in that discomfort lies the raw material of your inner fortress. The methodology is deceptively simple. Deliberately extend your periods of solitude. Start with an hour of complete disconnection, no devices, no entertainment, just you and your thoughts. Then gradually increase. The initial discomfort you'll feel is simply the sound of weak mental patterns breaking down to make room for stronger ones. What once felt like fragility, that sensation of needing others around to feel complete, transforms into something remarkable, the inevitable emergence of your genuine self. A self that doesn't need constant input or reassurance, a self that generates energy rather than constantly consuming it from external sources. This inner fortress doesn't appear overnight. It's built brick by brick, silence by silence, moment by moment alone, when you choose presence over escape. The reward is a clarity of thought and emotional resilience that feels almost like a superpower in today's distracted world. Think about how this might reshape your approach to relationships, work, and personal goals. When you no longer fear being alone, you're free to make choices based on what truly matters rather than what merely fills the void. I'm curious to know if this resonates with your experience. If you felt this shift in your own life, write in the comments, "Building my fortress." I'd love to know I'm not alone in this journey of transforming solitude from something we endure into something we cultivate. Now I want to go even deeper into how this inner fortress becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. True strength comes from self-forging in solitude, not applause or comfort. Discipline, though unappealing, is your unstealable weapon. This revelation struck me deeply during my own transformation journey. When everyone's looking for shortcuts, the difficult path becomes the hidden advantage. The strongest individuals throughout history weren't shaped by constant validation. They were forged in the quiet moments when no one was watching, making difficult choices that others avoided. What makes this truth so powerful is that it's accessible to anyone willing to embrace temporary discomfort for lasting strength. I remember a period in my life when everything felt unstable. What ultimately changed wasn't my circumstances, but my response to them. The decision to embrace discipline, to do what needed doing regardless of mood or motivation, created a foundation nothing could shake. Think about the most resilient people you know. Their strength didn't materialize overnight through some miracle breakthrough. It was built through consistent, often unglamorous effort. The revelation here isn't just about physical discipline, but mental fortitude, the ability to maintain boundaries, protect your energy, and pursue meaningful goals when easier options abound. If you're enjoying this content, make sure to subscribe right now and activate notifications. Your future self will thank you. Society celebrates the destination, while ignoring the journey's importance. We see success, but rarely witness the private struggles, the early mornings, the sacrifices that made it possible. The mindset shift happens when you realize that those boring disciplines, consistent work, emotional regulation, honoring commitments, aren't just means to an end, but powerful in themselves. What makes discipline truly unstealable is that no external force can take it from you. Money, status, relationships, all can vanish overnight. But the capacity to maintain order in chaos, to choose long-term benefit over immediate gratification, remains yours regardless of circumstance. This isn't about perfection. The strongest individuals aren't those who never falter, but those who return to their discipline after failing. The resilience comes from viewing setbacks as temporary and maintaining a steady course despite them. The impact of this perspective extends beyond personal achievement to every relationship and endeavor in your life. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how solitude specifically strengthens this discipline. There's a reason why profound growth often happens during our most isolated seasons. The noise of constant feedback, whether positive or negative, can distract from the essential inner work needed for genuine advancement. If you've experienced that moment when discipline finally clicked for you, type "forged in solitude" in the comments below. Instead of shortcuts, patience shields. You turning delay into power. Challenges are weights that strengthen those who lift them rather than flee. They represent opportunities for transformation that remain invisible to those seeking the easiest path. This profound mindset shift changes everything about how we navigate our journeys. When you embrace patience as a strategic advantage, you begin operating on an entirely different wavelength than most people. The modern world constantly bombards us with promises of instant results, 3-day bodies, overnight success stories, and quick-fix solutions. But these narratives hide the uncomfortable truth that meaningful growth requires time and consistent effort. Behind the scenes of every overnight success lies years of unseen work, countless failures, and periods of doubt. Consider how nature itself reveals this principle. Oak trees that withstand centuries of storms grow slowly, developing deep roots and resilient cores through years of gradual development. They can't be rushed. What's fascinating is how this patience paradox plays out in our neurological development. When we delay gratification and work through challenges, our brains physically rewire themselves, strengthening neural pathways associated with discipline and focus. It's a biological revelation that what feels difficult now literally restructures your mind to make similar challenges easier in the future. The Japanese concept of kaizen, continuous small improvements, captures this perfectly. Rather than dramatic, unsustainable changes, this philosophy embraces tiny, consistent steps forward. A single page read daily eventually completes the book. One extra repetition builds strength over time. 5 minutes of practice daily accumulates into mastery. I've personally witnessed this in my own journey. The projects that initially seemed most frustrating, the ones where progress felt painfully slow, ultimately delivered the most profound impact on my life and the most satisfying sense of accomplishment. The resistance wasn't an obstacle, it was the pathway to something meaningful. This perspective shift transforms how we view difficulties. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" Every setback becomes data, not disaster. Every delay provides space for deeper understanding, rather than simply being a frustration to overcome. What's most powerful about this approach is how it ripples through every aspect of life. Professional growth, relationships, health improvements, they all respond to this same principle of patient persistence over quick fixes. The decisions you make today, favoring sustainable growth over immediate reward, compound over time into extraordinary differences in your life trajectory. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how we can practically apply this patience mindset in our daily lives, especially when everything around us seems designed to pull us back into impatience and quick-fix thinking. There's a specific framework I've developed that makes this process much more manageable. If this perspective on patience and challenge resonates with your own experience, write "Patience pays" in the comments below. The battle is not external, it's within you, crafting something others dare not. The world cannot manipulate a man who commands himself. This revelation transforms everything when you truly grasp it. Look around at those living reactively, constantly responding to external triggers, opinions, and circumstances. They're like ships without rudders, drifting wherever the current takes them. What separates the extraordinary from the ordinary isn't intelligence or opportunity. It's the deep understanding that true power comes from within. The inner architecture of your decisions shapes your destiny far more than external conditions ever will. Consider how most people approach challenges. They look outward, blaming circumstances, seeking permission, waiting for perfect conditions. Meanwhile, those who achieve remarkable things understand a profound truth. The battlefield that matters most exists in your mind. I discovered this transformation firsthand when facing my greatest setbacks. The external obstacles seemed insurmountable until I realized they weren't the real barriers. The limiting beliefs I had constructed, the stories I told myself about what was possible, these were the true walls confining me. When you shift from external validation to internal conviction, something remarkable happens. Suddenly, the marketplace can't dictate your worth. Social media can't determine your value. Critics can't define your potential. You've reclaimed the authority that was always yours. This journey toward self-mastery isn't abstract philosophy. It's practical power. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure, long-term vision over immediate gratification, you're strengthening this internal command. You're building the unshakable foundation that no external force can topple. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining what happens in the mind of someone who has developed this internal command. There's a fascinating psychological shift that occurs when you stop outsourcing your power and start cultivating it within. The decision-making process itself transforms, creating ripple effects throughout every aspect of your life. The hidden truth is that most people never experience true freedom because they've never experienced true self-discipline. They associate discipline with restriction, never realizing it's actually the gateway to liberation. When you command yourself, external manipulations lose their grip. Marketing tactics that work on others slide right off you. Social pressures that bend others to conformity find you immovable. If this perspective resonates with your experience, write "inner command" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already begun this internal journey of mastery. Power without direction crumbles. You must move with cold precision and vision. The mind that hasn't aligned itself with clear intentions becomes scattered, diffused, weak. I've witnessed this repeatedly in those who possess all the potential but lack the disciplined focus that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. They drift through life like ships without rudders, tossed by every wave of distraction. The most profound transformation begins when you redirect your mental energy with military precision. When your thoughts, actions, and decisions align with a singular vision, you create an unstoppable momentum. This isn't about working harder, it's about eliminating mental waste, the scattered thinking that drains your power. Consider the hidden truth behind every great achievement in history. Behind the genius was simplicity of purpose. Behind complexity was clarity of vision. When Alexander cut the Gordian knot, instead of untying it, he demonstrated the power of decisive thinking that bypasses conventional limitations. Know yourself to rule yourself, remove the comforting lies, and face truth as a warrior. Most live in carefully constructed delusions, avoiding the mirror that would reveal their true nature. The path to genuine power requires the courage to interrogate yourself without mercy. What weaknesses are you protecting? What excuses have become your refuge? What truths are you avoiding because they demand change? The greatest battlefield isn't external, it's the war against self-deception. When you commit to brutal self-honesty, you discover the liberation that comes with facing your shadows. This journey into self-knowledge isn't comfortable, but comfort has never been the companion of greatness. I've guided many through this process of internal reckoning, watching as they shed the dead weight of their illusions. The transformation is always the same. First resistance, then revelation, and finally, a reclamation of personal power that had been surrendered to fear and falsehood. Your mind is either your greatest ally or your most dangerous adversary. When you train it to confront reality without flinching, you develop the psychological fortitude that allows you to remain centered when others crumble under pressure. This resilience becomes your competitive edge in every domain of life. Now, I want to go even deeper into this psychological discipline that forms the foundation of exceptional achievement. The mind that has been stripped of its protective illusions gains a clarity that few ever experience. This clarity doesn't just inform your decisions, it revolutionizes how you perceive opportunities and threats in your environment. If what I'm saying resonates with your experience, write "truth over comfort" in the comments. I'm curious to know how many of you have already begun this journey of ruthless self-examination. The world is not chaos, but a pattern. Study it to shape it rather than react to it. You do not manipulate others, but master yourself to see the truth others overlook. This realization was my first real awakening. The patterns that govern human behavior aren't random. They're predictable once you know what to look for. Think about how crowds move during emergencies, or how markets respond to certain news. These aren't chaotic events, but predictable responses to specific triggers. What fascinates me is how this understanding transforms your relationship with reality. Most people feel like they're at the mercy of circumstances, constantly reacting to whatever life throws their way. But when you begin to recognize the underlying patterns, you move from reaction to anticipation. You're no longer swimming against the current, but learning to navigate the flow. I remember speaking with a former intelligence analyst who told me something profound. The difference between strategic and tactical thinking is that tactical thinkers solve the problem in front of them, while strategic thinkers solve tomorrow's problems today. This perspective shift is immensely powerful. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the hidden architecture of influence. The journey toward mastering these patterns isn't about gaining power over others. It's about gaining clarity when everyone else is confused. It's about developing the ability to see the invisible forces that shape decisions, including your own. Consider how advertising works. It doesn't force you to buy products. It creates associations and emotional responses that make those purchases feel like your own idea. The most effective influences in our lives are often the ones we don't consciously register. This isn't manipulation. It's simply how human psychology functions. The real revelation comes when you turn this awareness inward. You begin to notice your own automatic responses, your own patterns of behavior that may have been programmed by others. This self-knowledge becomes a form of liberation. You can't truly understand the world's patterns until you understand your own. What I've discovered through years of studying these dynamics is that influence is more about timing and positioning than force. It's about understanding the natural momentum of systems and situations, then making small, strategic adjustments at precisely the right moment. This mindset completely transforms how you approach challenges. You stop fighting against reality and start working with it. You recognize that resistance is often what gives problems their power. Instead, you learn to redirect energy, just as a martial artist uses an opponent's momentum to their advantage. If any of this resonates with your own experiences, write "patterns, not chaos" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already begun to notice these invisible structures in your daily lives. Patience, silence, and strategy allow you to wait when others rush and advance. When others wait, power lies in waiting, studying, and executing at the right moment. When you understand this dynamic, You begin to see opportunities where others see only obstacles. Think about the greatest chess players in history. They don't just react to their opponent's last move. They're mapping out potential scenarios 5, 10, sometimes 20 moves ahead. They're comfortable in the tension of waiting, reading the board, and striking only when the conditions align perfectly. This principle of strategic timing transcends games. It's a fundamental law of personal transformation. I've witnessed countless situations where someone rushed to judgment, made impulsive decisions, and later regretted those choices. Meanwhile, the person who waited, observed, and gathered information ultimately claimed the advantage with far less effort. Consider the journey of building influence. Those who constantly announce their intentions and broadcast every move often find themselves facing unexpected resistance. Their transparency becomes a liability. But those who move with discretion, who understand the power of revealing only what serves their purpose at precisely the right moment, they're the ones who shape circumstances rather than being shaped by them. The hidden truth is that patience isn't passive. It's an active state of preparation. When you're silent, you're not doing nothing. You're listening, learning, and loading the spring that will eventually propel you forward. This is where the real work happens, in these quiet spaces between obvious actions. I've personally discovered that my greatest breakthroughs came not from forcing situations, but from allowing them to develop and then recognizing the perfect moment to act. It's like watching a wave form in the distance. There's a precise moment to paddle and catch it, and timing is everything. Too early or too late, and the opportunity is lost. This mindset requires a fundamental shift in how we perceive time and opportunity. Most people live in constant reaction mode, bouncing from one situation to another without ever pausing to see the larger patterns. They confuse motion with progress and activity with achievement. But true power comes from intentional action at the perfect moment, not from constant movement. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this principle applies specifically to information and knowledge management. There's a reason why the most influential people are often the best listeners and the most careful with their words. They understand that information is currency, and how you collect, protect, and deploy it determines your leverage in almost any situation. If you've ever found yourself in a situation where waiting and observing gave you an unexpected advantage, write "Patience paid off" in the comments below. I'd love to know about your experience with strategic timing. Purpose demands ruthless clarity, reductions eliminating distractions, not additions. Your aim must be unyielding and singular, dominating your chosen pursuit. This is where most people falter in their journey toward mastery. They mistake busyness for progress, constantly adding new tools, techniques, and opportunities to their plate without removing anything. The transformative power of purpose comes from its ability to strip away everything unnecessary. Think about any legendary figure in history, whether an artist, entrepreneur, or athlete. Their greatness wasn't built on doing 1,000 different things adequately. Their impact came from doing one thing with relentless dedication while saying no to everything else. Consider Steve Jobs returning to Apple in 1997. The company had sprawled into dozens of product lines, each mediocre, none exceptional. His first move wasn't adding new products, but dramatically cutting the lineup by 70%. This radical reduction created the focus that eventually led to revolutionary products like the iPod, iPhone, and iPad. This principle transcends professional life. In relationships, finances, health, the path to extraordinary results requires elimination, not accumulation. The mindset shift here is substantial. Most of us were raised to believe that more options equal more freedom. But true freedom comes from the clarity of having fewer, better choices aligned with your core purpose. I've seen this revelation change lives. One client came to me overwhelmed with 18 different business opportunities, making minimal progress on all of them. When I pushed him to choose just one path and eliminate the rest, he initially resisted. The fear of missing out was paralyzing him. But after committing to a single direction, his energy transformed. Within 6 months, he had achieved more than in the previous 3 years combined. Behind the scenes of every success story lies this hidden truth. Greatness demands sacrifice. Not the sacrifice of effort, most people work hard, but the sacrifice of possibilities. The willingness to close doors so that one door can fully open. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how to identify your singular purpose when the world keeps pulling you in multiple directions. The journey toward clarity often begins with understanding what truly drives you beneath the surface-level desires. Most people never reach this depth of self-knowledge, which is precisely why most people never achieve extraordinary results in their chosen field. If what I'm saying resonates with your experience, write "clarity through reduction" in the comments section below. Now let's talk about where true strength emerges in this journey. People often think purpose is found in some dramatic revelation or inspiring moment, but I've discovered something far more powerful. Purpose flourishes in execution, monotony, and repetition. That's where the real magic happens. Think about any transformative achievement in history. Behind every breakthrough lies thousands of hours of consistent, often mundane effort. The painter who mixed the same colors day after day before creating a masterpiece. The entrepreneur who refined their pitch hundreds of times before securing funding. The athlete who practiced the same movement until their muscles performed it without conscious thought. This is the hidden truth many aren't ready to face. Your purpose isn't waiting to be discovered in some distant epiphany. It's being forged right now in how you approach each day's challenges. The revelation comes through the doing. Rejecting mediocrity requires a special kind of endurance. It demands showing up when motivation has abandoned you, when the initial excitement has faded into the background. This is where most people falter on their journey, not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they underestimate the power of sustained effort through uninspiring moments. Ruthless clarity becomes your compass here. It's about making decisions that align with your core values without negotiation. This clarity doesn't mean being rigid. It means understanding which compromises diminish your impact and which adaptations enhance it. The mind becomes sharper when you consistently refuse to settle for good enough. I've witnessed this transformation in my own life and in countless others. There's a profound mindset shift that occurs when you embrace the beauty of consistent execution rather than chasing constant variation or excitement. The monotony itself becomes meaningful when connected to purpose. Behind every overnight success is a decade of invisible work, repetitions that seemed insignificant at the time but were secretly building something extraordinary. The journey involves embracing these moments rather than merely enduring them. What I'm sharing here isn't just philosophy. It's practical wisdom that changes how you approach each day. When you recognize that greatness lives in repeated small actions rather than occasional grand gestures, everything shifts. If what I've described resonates with your experience or challenges your perspective in a meaningful way, write "embracing the monotony" in the comments. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this approach fundamentally reshapes your relationship with failure and growth. The mastery of emotional control creates a fundamental shift in how we navigate life. It's not about suppressing your feelings, it's about wielding them with intention. Think of your emotions as powerful currents of energy that, when directed properly, can propel you toward your goals instead of sweeping you away. When I first understood this concept, it transformed my decision-making process. Instead of reacting to situations based on immediate emotional responses, I began to create a small but critical space between stimulus and response. This micro-pause is where true power lives. This is the hidden truth many successful people understand but rarely discuss openly. Emotions are neither good nor bad, they're simply information. The difference is in how we interpret and channel that information. Your anger can fuel determination. Your fear can sharpen focus. Your excitement can generate creativity. Consider how differently your life might unfold if during moments of intense emotion you asked yourself, how can I use this feeling to move me forward rather than hold me back? This simple question creates a fundamental paradigm shift. I've witnessed this transformation in clients who previously identified as too emotional for leadership roles. By reframing their emotional sensitivity as an asset, enhanced empathy, intuition, and passion, they've stepped into their full potential, often surpassing colleagues who prided themselves on being purely logical. The journey toward emotional mastery isn't linear. It's a practice that deepens over time. You'll have setbacks, moments when emotions temporarily overwhelm your best intentions. The difference is that with practice, these moments become shorter, less frequent, and followed by reflection rather than regret. Notice how this approach differs from outdated advice about controlling emotions. We're not talking about suppression, which ultimately creates pressure that must eventually release. Instead, we're discussing emotional alchemy, the ability to transmute reactive emotional energy into proactive power. This understanding gives birth to a profound inner freedom. When you're no longer at the mercy of emotional weather patterns, you gain the ability to navigate toward your chosen destination regardless of conditions. Your decision-making becomes more consistent, your relationships more stable, and your progress more reliable. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining specific strategies that can help you develop this emotional intelligence in practical, everyday situations. These approaches have helped countless individuals transform their relationship with emotions from one of conflict to one of partnership. If this perspective resonates with your experience, write emotional alchemy in the comments. I'd love to know who among you is already practicing this transformative approach to emotional intelligence. Presence is silent gravity that commands attention without arrogance or excess. It's the profound ability to occupy space in a way that feels both natural and inevitable. Think of someone who walks into a room and immediately changes its energy. Not through loud proclamations or theatrical entrances, but through the quiet confidence they embody. When we talk about mastering emotions for powerful presence, I'm not suggesting suppression. Rather, I'm talking about a deep emotional intelligence that allows you to remain centered during chaos. This emotional mastery creates a foundation of certainty that others can feel. People are naturally drawn to those who seem unshakable amid uncertainty. It's a biological response to seek safety. With those who appear to have things figured out, the journey toward authentic presence requires ruthless self-honesty. We must confront our insecurities rather than compensate for them. Many attempt to project strength by dominating conversations or space, but this approach typically signals internal weakness. True presence doesn't demand attention. It naturally attracts it. I worked with a client who believed commanding presence meant speaking loudly and interrupting others. His transformation began when he realized his most influential moments came when he listened deeply and responded thoughtfully. His revelation: I was so busy trying to be important that I missed opportunities to be influential. The hidden truth about remarkable presence is that it's more about subtraction than addition. Remove the need to prove yourself. Strip away performative behaviors. Eliminate reactive responses. What remains is your authentic core. And paradoxically, this simplified, genuine self has far greater impact than any carefully constructed persona. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how physical embodiment creates an unspoken language that either amplifies or diminishes your presence. Your body communicates constantly, regardless of your words, and understanding this silent dialogue changes everything about how people experience you. The stance you take, literally and figuratively, affects how your message lands. Notice how certain people seem to have an invisible force field around them. This isn't mystical, but rather the result of intentional alignment between their internal state and external expression. This alignment creates a resonance that others can feel before you've said a single word. If you're finding these ideas resonate with your own experience of powerful people, write in the comments, "Presence speaks before I do." I'd love to know which aspect of authentic presence you're currently working to develop in your own life. Presence with substance naturally influences the world and wins respect. This simple truth has transformed how I navigate both business and personal relationships. When you enter a room with genuine depth, people feel it before you even speak. It's not about dominating conversations or displaying credentials. It's about the quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. Think about the most impactful people you've encountered. What made them memorable wasn't just their achievements, but how they carried themselves. Their presence had weight. This isn't something you can fake. It emerges organically when you've done the internal work. The journey toward developing this authentic presence requires honest self-reflection, questioning your values, confronting your weaknesses, and continuously refining your character. Self-mastery is your sovereignty. Power over yourself is the unyielding empire. These words revealed themselves to me during a particularly challenging period when external circumstances seemed determined to break my resolve. I realized that while I couldn't control what happened around me, I could absolutely control my response. This revelation completely shifted my mindset about personal power. The hidden truth about influence is that it begins with self-governance. Consider how easily we surrender our internal authority, reacting impulsively to provocations, abandoning our principles under pressure, or seeking validation from others. Each time we do this, we diminish our sovereignty. True power isn't exercised over others, but within ourselves. I've witnessed remarkable transformations in people who embrace this philosophy. One colleague who previously struggled with conflict avoidance developed such profound self-possession that she became known for gracefully handling the most contentious negotiations. Her journey wasn't about becoming more aggressive. It was about becoming more firmly anchored in herself. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this presence manifests in practical situations. When facing opposition, the person with genuine presence doesn't need to raise their voice or assert dominance. Their calm certainty speaks volumes. This isn't passive, it's incredibly active, requiring moment-by-moment awareness and choice. The decision to cultivate this kind of presence isn't made once, but thousands of times daily. It's choosing patience when irritated, courage when frightened, honesty when tempted to conceal. Each choice strengthens your internal authority. What's fascinating is how this inner work creates ripples in your external world. Colleagues become more receptive to your ideas, relationships deepen, and opportunities arise that previously seemed inaccessible. If you're nodding along as I speak about this journey of self-mastery, type "sovereignty starts within" in the comments below. I'm curious how many of you are already walking this path of internal authority. Command of thought, mastery of body, desire and time. These four pillars aren't just philosophical concepts. They're the practical foundation of personal sovereignty that I've witnessed transform lives, including my own. When you truly command your thoughts, you stop being pulled by every emotional reaction and external stimulus. Instead, you observe your mind's workings, choosing which thoughts deserve your energy. This internal discipline creates ripple effects. I remember working with someone who would spiral into anxiety at every work email. Through developing thought mastery, she learned to pause, assess the situation objectively, and respond rather than react. Within months, she was handling challenges that would have previously overwhelmed her. Now, mastery of body goes beyond exercise routines or diet plans. It's about living consciously in your physical vessel. When you understand your body's signals and rhythms, you make decisions aligned with your well-being rather than external pressures. This revelation often marks a turning point in the journey towards sovereignty. The control of desire might be the most challenging aspect for many. We live in a culture engineered to create perpetual wanting. Advertising, social media, even our entertainment is designed to make us feel incomplete without something more. The sovereign individual recognizes these influences, examining which desires truly serve their authentic path versus those manufactured by external forces. Time sovereignty might be the most revolutionary concept in our hyper-connected era. When you reclaim command of your schedule, you fundamentally restructure your relationship with life itself. I've worked with countless professionals who thought being constantly available was the price of success, only to discover their creative potential exploded once they established boundaries around their time. The transformation comes when these elements work in harmony. You're no longer just responding to life's demands, but consciously directing your journey. This isn't about isolation or rejecting community, quite the opposite. When you establish this inner foundation, your connections with others become more authentic and meaningful. Think about the people who've truly influenced your life. Were they desperate for approval? Did they constantly shift their beliefs to match others? Or did they stand in their truth with such conviction that it naturally drew others toward them? True influence emerges from this centered place of being. The path to sovereignty isn't always comfortable. It challenges our conditioning and pushes us to examine beliefs we've held unquestioned. Yet in this examination lies the gateway to genuine freedom. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom to choose our response to life with clarity and purpose. As we explore this journey deeper, I'm curious about your experiences with these concepts. Drop in the comments, "I'm reclaiming my sovereignty," if you're already on this path or feeling called to begin it. Now, I want to go even deeper into what happens when these four pillars become integrated into your daily existence. Being untouchable means developing a mindset where external forces can't penetrate your inner fortress. I've discovered that true power lies not in defending against every attack, but in building such internal strength that these attacks become irrelevant. It's a profound psychological transformation that changes how you navigate the world. When someone directs negativity your way, your silence becomes your shield. Not the awkward, passive silence of someone who doesn't know what to say, but the deliberate silence of someone who knows their worth doesn't depend on defending it verbally. I've seen people exhaust themselves trying to explain their value to others who aren't ready to see it. Clarity becomes your compass in these moments. When you know exactly who you are and what you stand for, outside opinions lose their sting. This isn't about arrogance, it's about self-knowledge so deep that external validation becomes optional. I've witnessed how people who possess this clarity can walk through criticism unscathed, not because they don't hear it, but because they can evaluate it objectively without emotional attachment. Self-discipline forms the backbone of this untouchable mindset. It means controlling your responses rather than being controlled by them. Every time you resist the urge to react impulsively, you strengthen this muscle. Think of it as building immunity. Each exposure to difficulty that doesn't break you makes you more resilient for the next challenge. The journey to becoming untouchable involves facing tests that reveal your true capacity. These moments of doubt and difficulty aren't obstacles, but opportunities for evolution. When someone questions your abilities or your choices, they're inadvertently offering you a chance to demonstrate your unshakable nature. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this mindset creates ripples in your daily interactions. The untouchable quality doesn't just protect you, it completely shifts how others perceive and respond to you. There's something magnetic about someone who cannot be easily provoked or manipulated. People sense this boundary, this inner strength, and they naturally adjust their approach. Behind the scenes of every successful person's journey is this hidden truth. They've learned to separate their essential self from the temporary storms of circumstance and opinion. This separation isn't about disconnection from reality, but about creating a sacred space within that remains constant regardless of external chaos. The hidden power of being untouchable is that you no longer waste energy on unnecessary battles. You conserve your resources for what truly matters, leading to greater impact in the areas you choose to engage with. I've observed this pattern repeatedly in those who've mastered their reactions. They accomplish more with less apparent effort because they're not constantly recovering from emotional wounds. If what I'm sharing resonates with your own experiences or aspirations, write "Inner Fortress" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you are already practicing these principles without perhaps naming them. In solitude lies the strongest foundation, forming unmatched inner power. Even when faced with doubt, persistence turns failure into stepping stones. This journey of personal mastery is deeply misunderstood by those who fear being alone with their thoughts. When we embrace those quiet moments, something transformative begins to happen. Our internal compass becomes calibrated, free from external noise and influence. The world constantly pulls us toward distraction, telling us that connection always means being surrounded by others. But there's a profound revelation that comes when you discover the difference between loneliness and purposeful solitude. The latter becomes the workshop where your greatest ideas are forged, where clarity emerges from chaos. Think about the most impactful figures throughout history. Many experienced periods of isolation that preceded their greatest breakthroughs. This pattern isn't coincidental. It's almost a prerequisite for profound personal evolution. During these moments of voluntary separation from the constant social current, we begin to recognize thought, patterns that have been hidden in plain sight throughout our lives. These hidden truths about our capabilities remain concealed until we create the space needed to uncover them. The strength developed in solitude becomes unshakable because it doesn't depend on external validation. That's the fundamental mindset shift that changes everything, understanding that true power comes from within, not from outside approval. The beauty of this path lies in its accessibility. You don't need special equipment or privileged circumstances to begin this journey. You simply need the courage to sit with yourself, to face both your brilliance and your shadows with equal acceptance. This decision alone separates those who merely wish for change from those who manifest it. When obstacles inevitably appear, and they will, your relationship with failure undergoes a remarkable transformation. What once felt like devastating setbacks become fascinating data points, each offering unique wisdom that success could never teach. This perspective shift doesn't happen overnight, but through consistent practice, it becomes your default operating system. Now, I want to go even deeper into this concept of using adversity as fuel rather than allowing it to extinguish your drive. There's a subtle art to extracting wisdom from experiences that most people discard as purely negative. The masters of personal development have understood this secret throughout time, that within every challenge lies a hidden opportunity waiting to be discovered. If any of this resonates with your own experience, write "Solitude strengthens" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already discovered this powerful truth in your own lives. Relentless routine liberates you from indecision, maintaining momentum. And that's the hidden power most people miss. Routine isn't about restriction, it's about freedom. When you establish non-negotiable habits, you bypass the mental fatigue of constant decision-making. This is why high performers often wear the same outfits or eat similar meals. They're protecting their decisive energy for what truly matters. Consider how many micro-decisions drain your willpower daily. What to wear, when to exercise, whether to work on that project now or later. Each choice creates friction. But when certain actions become automatic through routine, you experience a profound mental liberation. Your mind clears. The path forward simplifies. Think about the mornings when you wake up and immediately follow your established routine. There's a flow state that emerges, right? That's the momentum I'm talking about, the invisible force that carries you forward even when motivation naturally declines. Because motivation absolutely wanes, it's designed to fluctuate. This is where the transformation happens, pushing beyond resistance. When you continue your routine despite not feeling like it, you're building neural pathways that transcend emotional states. You're teaching your brain that actions don't require perfect alignment with feelings. The journey through resistance is where true growth lives. It's in those moments of continuing despite discomfort that your identity shifts from someone who tries occasionally to someone who simply is consistent. The revelation comes when you realize consistency isn't about perfection, but about returning to the path again and again. What fascinates me about this mindset shift is how it changes your relationship with time. Most see time as something that passes while waiting for inspiration. Those who master routine understand time as a construction material. Each consistent day builds something substantial. Now I want to go even deeper into what happens physiologically when you maintain routines, even during low motivation periods. The brain actually changes in response to this pattern, creating stronger neural connections that make future resistance easier to overcome. It's a fascinating cycle of neurological reinforcement that many never experience because they stop at the first sign of discomfort. If you're nodding along to this right now because you've experienced the power of pushing through resistance, write "Momentum matters" in the comments below. I'm curious how many of you have felt this transformation firsthand. Discipline achieves relentless action. Focus ensures movements towards vision. The key lies in how these two forces work as an intricate dance together. When discipline becomes your foundation, taking consistent steps even when motivation fades, you unlock a hidden truth most never realize. Momentum is the greatest force multiplier in any transformation journey. I've observed this pattern repeatedly with clients who made extraordinary breakthroughs. They didn't wait for perfect circumstances. They created a rhythm of execution that became nearly unstoppable. Think about the compound effect. Small, focused actions executed with disciplined consistency create exponential results that appear almost magical to outside observers. Presence is more than physical. It's command over emotions and energies radiated. This mastery represents perhaps the most profound leadership skill rarely discussed in conventional development programs. When you cultivate genuine presence, you're not just occupying space, you're influencing the emotional atmosphere around you. Your internal state becomes contagious, affecting decisions, creativity, and even the physiological responses of those in your orbit. The science behind this is fascinating. Research on mirror neurons shows how our brains are literally wired to sync with others' emotional states. As a leader, your presence creates ripples that extend far beyond your conscious awareness. I've witnessed rooms transform when someone with true presence enters, not because of positional authority, but because of their energetic impact. Here's where the revelation happens. Your discipline and focus directly enhance your presence. They create what I call decisional integrity, the alignment between what you claim to value and how you actually allocate your time and energy. People intuitively sense this congruence, and it builds a level of trust that transcends superficial communication techniques. Behind the scenes of every exceptional leader I've studied, this triad of discipline, focus, and presence forms their operational foundation. They don't view these as abstract concepts, but as daily practices requiring deliberate attention. The integration happens through consistent reflection, asking yourself, did my actions today align with my highest priorities? Did I bring my full presence to key moments? Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these principles manifest differently across various leadership contexts. The fascinating aspect is how these universal truths adapt to unique environments while maintaining their fundamental power. If you're connecting with these concepts and seeing how they apply to your own leadership journey, type aligned leadership in the comments below. Beyond these internal shifts, presence and self-governance create ripple effects that most people never fully appreciate. When you commit to controlled presence over months and years, what you're really building is a reputation that precedes you. This reputation isn't just some abstract concept. It's the invisible force that shapes opportunities before you even enter the room. I've witnessed this transformation countless times in my own journey. There's a profound difference between the opportunities that come to someone who reacts to life versus someone who responds with intention. The latter develops what I call a presence footprint that others can sense immediately. Think about the people in your life who command attention without demanding it. That quality doesn't happen overnight. It's the culmination of thousands of small moments where they chose alignment over reaction. This is where the hidden leverage exists. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the counterintuitive reality of self-governance. Many assume that governing yourself means restriction, but the opposite is true. When you detach from external validation and align your actions with your inner vision, you experience a form of freedom that most people never know. This internal alignment creates a foundation for decision-making that feels almost effortless. Rather than weighing a dozen outside opinions or chasing societal approval, your choices emerge from a centered place of knowing. The mental energy you save is immense, and this creates space for deeper creativity and insight. Consider how much time the average person spends wondering what others think of them or their decisions. Now imagine reclaiming all those hours and redirecting that energy toward meaningful creation. This is the untold advantage of self-governance. It transforms wasted mental energy into focused power. The journey toward this state isn't always comfortable. There will be moments when your commitment to presence feels like swimming upstream while everyone else floats with the current. These moments of resistance are actually signposts that you're moving in the right direction, expanding beyond old limitations. What's fascinating is how this internal shift becomes visible to others. People can sense when someone operates from a place of internal coherence rather than external reactivity. They might not name it precisely, but they feel it, and this feeling influences how they respond to you in subtle yet significant ways. As you continue developing these qualities, you'll notice opportunities arising that seem perfectly aligned with your path. This isn't coincidence, it's the natural result of becoming what you're seeking. The coherence between your inner state and outer expression creates a magnetic quality that draws resonant experiences toward you. If you're recognizing these patterns in your own life, drop "I'm seeing the alignment" in the comments below. I'm curious how many of you are noticing these subtle shifts in your own experience. True strength moves beyond appearances, shaped by presence and substance. What I've come to understand through years of observing powerful people is that genuine authority doesn't announce itself. It simply exists in the room before a word is spoken. This invisible force field around truly confident individuals isn't built overnight. It's the culmination of internal battles won far from public view. Consider the transformation that occurs when someone stops seeking external validation. Their energy shifts completely. They stand differently, speak with measured clarity, and most importantly, they listen deeply. This is the hidden foundation of authentic influence that most people miss while chasing quick tactics and surface-level techniques. The journey toward this kind of presence requires confronting uncomfortable truths about ourselves. Those moments when you feel the urge to prove your worth, that's precisely when you must learn to pause. Real power emerges in that space between impulse and action. It's a deliberate practice of choosing substance over show, depth over display. I remember working with a client who initially commanded little respect in her executive meetings despite her brilliant mind. Her breakthrough came not from speaking more forcefully, but from mastering the art of strategic silence, knowing exactly when her words would carry maximum impact. Within months, her colleagues began leaning in whenever she prepared to speak. Nothing about her knowledge had changed, only her relationship with proving herself. Now, I want to go even deeper into this powerful psychological shift. When we stop performing our importance and instead embody it through quiet conviction, people feel the difference, even if they can't name it. This is where the real mastery begins, in understanding that personal power operates according to paradoxical rules. The more desperately you grasp for it, the more it slips away. Yet when you ground yourself in knowing your worth without needing constant affirmation, you become unshakable. This internal revolution ripples outward. Your decisions become clearer because they're no longer clouded by the need for approval. You develop what I call presence resilience, the ability to maintain your center even when challenged or criticized. Think about how rare that quality is in today's world, where most people's confidence fluctuates with every social media like or casual comment. The revelation here is that strength has never been about dominance or volume. Rather, it's about creating such a solid foundation within yourself that external storms may blow, but your core remains unmoved. This doesn't mean becoming rigid or cold, quite the opposite. When you're truly secure, you can afford to be more compassionate, more flexible, more genuinely connected to others. If what I've shared resonates with your experiences, write "I'm building from within" in the comments. I'd love to know how you're applying these principles in your own life. And if you've followed this journey with me to the end, you've already begun building something powerful within yourself. This kind of inner work isn't easy, but it's worth every moment of self-reflection. If these ideas sparked something in you today, consider subscribing to the channel. Each week, we explore these deeper dimensions of personal power and authentic presence that transform not just how others see you, but how you experience yourself. I'm curious about your own relationship with personal power. If you've made it this far and something connected, drop "I'm building from within" in the comments below. Your insights become part of this ongoing conversation we're creating together. If this exploration proved valuable to you, a simple like helps others discover this content who might be on the same path. There's a video right here about cultivating presence under pressure that builds beautifully on what we've discussed today. Click and continue with me over there, where we'll take these principles into even more challenging territories together.